Okay, are you ready for the Hamlets? Okay, in no particular order, please welcome Hamlet, as played by Oscar Isaac, and by Ethan Hawke, and by Andrew Scott, and Riz Ahmed. Hamlets of the world unite. Oh my God.
Family of Hamlets.
Okay, I'm really just here to prod the conversation along, so I'm hoping that you will take it over in whatever way you want to. But I would like to ask you to begin with, who has seen who's Hamlet of this group? Well, go for it. Okay, so go for it. Okay.
All right.
Really putting us on the spot.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
This is how the boy band breaks up.
I feel like I've seen Oscar's Hamlet because I saw the incredible documentary that his wife made about the production and what you went through doing it. And so I got, when Oscar and I were becoming friends, once we were in a hotel room in Budapest, and he basically told me everything about the experience for like 5 days. He would not shut up about the music cue and how he did the speech. So I definitely feel like I saw it. And it was awesome. Well, I have not seen your film, and it's
bullshit.
Yeah, I know. But I'm telling you, I cannot wait. This fine young man, I saw on stage actually do it and actually crush it in a way. You know the feeling when an actor, it starts like this. It starts and it's getting close to envy. And then that gets into irritation. And then you just walk, it just flips into flat out admiration. It's just like, because he also did it the way I think it should be done. So there, I went first.
Good. Andrew, did you see his Hamlet?
I saw Ethan's Hamlet, yes, which was.
You better say something nice. You better say something.
For me, didn't work. No, it was absolutely extraordinary because to see it. One of the big things that they say in Hamlet he says it in his advice to the actors. He says, "Speak it trippingly on the tongue." He says it like, "Don't do big, Hamlet-y Shakespeare-y acting." And when you've got a film of it, you can't really do that, or at least it's a little bit more obvious when you do it. And he just did it so incredibly naturally. So Ethan's Hamlet was a big inspiration for me. Really, really, really was.
Well said. Well said. Andy.
I mean,
well said. Yeah.
Good. Same. You can't really beat it to be or not to be in the video store. Looking at all the video cassettes there. I mean, it's so beautiful. I think it's my favorite on film Hamlet, without a doubt.
Pretty cool.
Anyone else see anyone else's?
I've seen all of them.
Wow.
Okay.
I have nothing to say about any of them. Next question. No, I haven't seen Oscar play it. I really wished I had, but I saw the beautiful documentary that Elvira made. I was moved to tears. I was laughing my ass off, and it was really beautiful insight into the creative process. Ethan's obviously one of the last major kind of English language, adaptations we've had on film, so we definitely made sure we watched that. So beautiful, so innovative, really inspired us to be able to just do our thing with it. Like you're saying, to be or not to be in a video store, like the resonance of that, Hamlet knowing that he's in a play, the play within a play, the actor within the video store. I just thought, right, there's a way of making this feel now, but also keep all this like deep resonance in it. So it's a big influence. And this guy, I just think the way that you performed Hamlet was so, it felt to me groundbreaking in many ways, because it was, for me anyway, it's my commentary on it maybe, it just prioritized the emotional connection, and the verse, Shakespearean verse, has such a momentum to it, which can be amazing. It's like getting on a runaway train. It just takes you to places. It's like magic spells. It's like incantation. But what I loved about what Andrew did was, it was like, I ain't moving on to the next fucking line until I mean it and you understand what I mean. And it never felt long. Something feels long actually when it's going over your head, and it was just such a rooted connection. So in all their ways, these guys have all inspired me, and it's an honor to be up here talking to them and to add to the tradition of people playing Hamlet, Yeah.
I have to say, just to geek out and make you uncomfortable, Andrew, I had this older actor that was my coach when I was studying Hamlet, and he said this thing that I always stayed with me, which is, you see how beautiful these words are? He said, just think like this. They're not good enough. That's what they're not. He's searching for a better way to express them. Each line, it's not good enough. And you got that. Your brain was on fire. And each thought was leading to the next one. No, I'll say it better. No, I can say it better. No, that's not it. And it was pure rock and roll.
I think that is one thing that people
Oscar
forget.
was flat.
Can we stop? All right, can we please stop?
Oscar didn't really
really
get
had
that.
enough.
Delighted I came. I'm delighted I came.
We were doing Hamlet at the same time, you and I.
We were
Yeah,
exactly.
so we didn't get to see each other. So thank fuck I didn't get to see you. Jesus Christ. Haven't seen Riz's yet. Not sure I will.
So no one has. No one has.
So annoying.
But you're bringing up the language. Let's go there for a minute. So Shakespeare's language is so gorgeous. It's the rhythm, it's the images, it kind of takes you over. Can you, each of you, talk a little bit about having that language in your body and having it in your mouth and what you learned from it?
I found it, I don't know, sometimes in talking about Shakespeare, I find it sometimes a little bit irritating that it's kind of been, Shakespeare's been sort of kidnapped by academics in a way that no other writer seems to have been. I think if there was 250 books written about a contemporary writer, I feel like those writers would be drowned. And I think a lot of actors feel, I certainly did, that I wasn't in possession of whatever gift it is that you have to have in order to be able to speak that way. And yes, there's a rhythm to the way, I think there's a certain rhythm that you have to adhere to. But that's kind of boring. I find it incredibly actable stuff. You know, and I think as long as you understand what it means, then I think the audience will, even if they don't understand everything. I think people understand rhythm a lot more than they necessarily do vocabulary sometimes. So I found it intimidating at the beginning. I hadn't done a huge amount of Shakespeare, but I don't know. I feel like it's very. I hate the idea that it's an elitist sort of. He's an
and I don't think it is
elitist
necessarily. Judi Dench directed a production of, I think it was Much Ado or As You Like It. And there was one point that one of the actors said a line that was so real that afterwards I had to go back and look it up because I couldn't believe it. And I think it's owning it, you know, in the way that really works for you. But how did each of you approach, you know, just doing this sort of revered guy?
Yeah, for me, I think I came at it in a very musical kind of way. It's just the music of it I just find very pleasurable. And I remember the thing that I kept wanting to listen to all the time was Gielgud's recording of it. Oh. Not because I necessarily was going to do it that way, but I just loved listening to it. It was like just listening to music, and I would listen and I would kind of parrot it back in a kind of in a parody. And I just found it very comforting to do. And it was less about interpretation and just more about kind of catching a wave of it and then letting it go. But also there's just so many beautiful clues in the text that point you towards the next wave to get onto. And I guess that's the thing that I come back to is just the pleasure of it and how strange it is that even after 7 years ago, that it's still, a lot of it still lives in there. It's just, it got in there somehow and doesn't go away.
Yeah.
I had an incredible experience, R.E. the language, and on It's Staying With You. I got to do the ghost scene with a man who's been here, the late, great Sam Shepard. Sam Shepard was playing the ghost, and watching him work on the text and watching his relationship to the words, somebody who was a playwright, and his obsession, and he's also a drummer. Yeah. And he was extremely interested in the way the language tells you the beats. And it can go faster, it can go slow, but there's a rhythm that's happening there, and the word choices, and he just loved it so much. And he had this huge speech, and at the end he has to go, "Remember me," and I was like, "I will till I die." But he just would get on this. It was like a locomotive.
But it's not prescriptive either. No. It's like very expressive, so it does feel like it's a musical notation that you can use or not use, but it gives you so much possibility for expression. The other thing that I loved doing was looking at the different different folios of it and seeing how much it would change and
that.
and allowing myself sometimes to use it on a different night. Try, I said in the doc, like sometimes, let's try sullied tonight instead of sallied flesh or solid flesh, or see what happens. And it's littered throughout it. And
one of the folios, that famous line of there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy, the line to Horatio. There's one folio where he says our philosophy. Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I like that better, and you can kind of play with that.
There is that. When you talk about musical notation, it's interesting because I think that's actually a really, really helpful way to think about it, as long as you think about it as not being classical music notation, but jazz. Because what it has is it contains within it the room for improvisation. And exactly as you're saying, like embedded into the rhythm of what Shakespeare has written, lots of he's just giving you helping hands. He's giving you these moments, these beats, these moments of irregularity in his rhythm that suggest a disrupted thought, that suggest a moment of distraction, that suggest a moment of pause. So there's all these kind of options that he's just kind of laid out for you. That's such a gift for an actor. And to what you were saying about intellectualizing it, I think the pitfall for me comes with Shakespeare, because the language is so beautiful, when we just start feeling ourselves. You just say, I'm going to recite these beautiful words, and it's a recital, and it's not. And for me, at least, there's no incorrect way of doing this. It's robust enough; it can be done in any which way. But for me, it's actually letting the rhythm and the music of the language kind of work on you, and rather than us being in control of it, it kind of sends you off the edge of a cliff. It sends you off on a spiral. It has its own kind of rhythmic power that I find to be, it was kind of like going under a spell at times, It's really, really beautiful. It's a privilege.
It's also like one of the big things I think about it is that it's so famous. We had a thing when we were rehearsing called the famous play buzzer, and it was so helpful. Like talking about the ghost, that when a play becomes so famous that everybody knows about it, and that Hamlet is this guy who's, with the inky cloak and he's depressed and blah, blah, blah. But that's because a terrible thing has happened 3 months beforehand or 2 months beforehand. Yeah. And who was he before? Who was he before? And Hamlet is such a funny play. It's really, really funny. Yeah. And he's so witty. He's just in grief. So that's at a particular moment in his life. And so when a play becomes so famous and a character becomes so famous, I think in some ways the tragedy of it sort of plays itself, because we know what happens. And so playing the kind of the lightness and kind of unlearning that we don't know, that when he sees his father, if we can imagine what it would be like if the ghost of our father appeared, we don't know that character isn't going to reappear for the rest of the play. You have to sort of unlearn all the stuff. And I think it's unlearning the tradition of the play and the plot of the play a little bit as well.
I had an amazing feeling to that regard doing the ghost scene, which is that it's not that I'm seeing a ghost that's so special, or that it's my father, but that my father's ghost would want to see me. Yeah, you're right. Like, why is he never talked to me when he was alive? Why me, Dad? You never talk to me, like
there's something really powerful in that idea as well, isn't it? Because I think what Hamlet deals with, and it's something that's so resonant in our culture right now, partly why I think there's all these Hamlet stories being told right now, is the idea of the archetypal absent father, right? Like when Hamlet's a man who doesn't have a template of manhood or a mold of manhood he can step into, right? And so when you've got this unmoored sense of manhood, it can be destructive, it can be panicking, it can be frenetic, it can be causing all this damage to others and itself as well. But there is something so beautiful about that, and we wanted to actually really underline that in our adaptation that you haven't seen, which was that, no, I'm gonna force someone to send him a link. But what we did is when our ghost arrives, he doesn't speak in English, he speaks in Hindi. Wow. Because what we wanted to do was say, it's really, and I saw this as well in your documentary, Oscar. It's beautiful to see you speaking Spanish with your family in that way, in those moments of intimacy. It's like, I'm going to speak to you like I spoke to you when you were a child. I'm going to speak to you in the most intimate register. I'm going to speak to you to the oldest part of your brain. And that there's something in that connects him to ancestry. This isn't a functional day-to-day situation, with words like, office block and like SM58 microphone. This is mere bete, mere pasao. This is something ancestral, you know what I mean? So that moment of the father appearing is so heartbreaking because he's going to disappear.
And
Dad's always going to go to
the thing
work.
that he
you know?
says, the one real thing that he says is just, remember me? Can you just remember me? Just that, you know? And like that's how you can have vengeance. Is just fucking remember me. And then the play does feel like it's remembering, like putting. There's so much talk about body parts and ulcers and sinews and fluids and I felt like I had made an archaeological discovery with like the dumb shit with the play within the play with the mousetrap that he was already sick. You know, he's already sick when she does. She's, you know, don't be. You know, he's saying he's gonna die, and then he gets poisoned. So for me, I felt like, oh my God, he's already dying. What does that mean? It means something, you know. Yeah, and so we used a lot of you know, syringes and IVs.
Same.
And that was,
we've got a lot. He had a long illness and he was dying.
Yeah, and you know, you'll see in the doc, and you see it was a crazy confluence of things that happened because I did a workshop of it. Let's say December, and then shortly after that, I found out my mother had cancer. February, she passed. It was very fast. February, March, Elvira and I got married. April, our son was born. In May, I was in rehearsals for Hamlet. And so it was a bit of like a monkey's paw, right? Where it's, you know, I was always like, I'm always going to do Hamlet. I spent 12 years and I'll be great. I know that I'll do it. And it's like, okay, this is the way that you'll have actual conviction when you do it, is you get to do it and you get to really feel it. You get to really feel what it's like to express grief, but this is why. And that was, you talk about the language acting upon you. You know, I lost my voice, and then we did a 4-hour to intermission version of it. And I found it very difficult to control that part of it, because also my mother didn't want a funeral, and we were kind of dumbfounded by it, and so we didn't do anything, and this became kind of the public grieving of it. This kind of became the funeral of it, and to try to manage that thing and also not manage it and let it be what it is and approach it. That navigation was strange, and I'm grateful for it, but it was brutal.
It was really moving to see that, man, and I thought it was really brave of you and Elvira to share that as well in a documentary. If anyone gets a chance to see it, please do, because like I think there can be a lot of preconceptions around like, well, actors want to do Hamlet because they're feeling themselves and they want to do Hamlet, and to some extent, yeah, best part ever written. We all want to do that, but it costs you something. Sometimes it costs you things you could never have imagined, and it demands a part of you to show up that. Any sense of vanity or like, yo, this is me with the top down, take a photo. That is not what performing Hamlet is. It takes you to a place. And personally, I think it's because, you know, Shakespeare only wrote 2 original plays, right? Love's Labour's Lost and The Tempest. Everything else is IP, right? Everything else, he's remixing other stuff, okay? And this is a deep, deep, ancient, powerful myth, the idea of the absent father, the vengeance of the blood debt, and do you do what's right, or do you kind of toe the line? And something that came up for us when we said it in a British Hindu family was that the myth of Hamlet is almost exactly the same, not exactly the same, very similar to the myth in the Bhagavad Gita, which is the Hindu central text. Arjuna is sat there paralyzed with inaction saying, do I fight these people? They're my uncles. They're my cousins. Do I do my duty or do I not hurt my family? And so that's why the first lines of dialogue you hear in our Hamlet are lines from the Bhagavad Gita during the death ritual of the father, you know? And so it has this deep resonance. It comes from this deep myth, and it does some shit to you, honestly.
Well, maybe I will see yours. Sounded pretty good.
I mean, I do feel like, I don't know if you guys agree, that it does feel like a religious text because of its ambiguity, and I'm not sure that it's even on purpose, like in some ways like the Bible, you know, it kind of accidentally becomes this hall of mirrors that it keeps like reflecting itself and reflecting the moment and the time and changes as you change, much like a religious text does.
So, for each of you, I mean, did Hamlet change you in any way afterwards? I mean, did it change? See, I almost said, did he change you? Did Hamlet change you in some way, cellular or otherwise?
I think the big thing for me was we did a big long version like yours, Oscar. I remember having a sort of weird, because we did it exactly the same time I did ours. We did ours in London, and Oscar did yours in New York, and we did a sort of 4-hour version. We did it 150 times, and when the big thing that it's done for me is that anything after it is just easier.
Really?
You just think you do a really hard part. You think, well, it's not as hard as that, because you have to explore. You're the soldier, you're the lover. I mean, to act something for 3.5 hours or 4 hours, the stamina of it is huge, and doing that 8 times a week, it's an enormous thing, demand physically and emotionally, and that's why it's a great privilege to get to do it. And I think after when that's in your, I don't know, when that's in your history, your physical history, it does. For me, the gift is like, well, nothing is
Changes your DNA.
Yeah, and he's no age. Like he's not one age.
Exactly.
You basically play a whole lifespan of a person.
Yeah. No different aspects of your personality.
Anyone else? What was life after Hamlet
I
like?
love so many things that you guys are saying. I love what you say. It is a hall of mirrors, and there is something deeply, undeniably spiritual about the text, and you feel like you're tapping something, and it does change you. We had the experience of doing it on film, so the stamina aspect of it, and one of the things that I felt lucky about getting to do it on film was I was really young, and my talent was not mature enough to have, at that age, to have done. I wouldn't have been able to do the 4-hour version like you guys did it at that point in my life. I would now. Any future directors out there? I'm fully ready.
Ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. But I felt really lucky to be able. I think to do it on stage requires a tremendous maturity of your gift, but on film, I could use my youth.
Yeah.
And it was
can sprint.
It was in a channel, and it activated certain things. You know, when I see Olivier do it with his mom, I kind of roll my eyes. Like, why are you so hung up on your mom? You know, like, grow up, buddy. But when you're 28, which I was, and it was all right when they're talking about going to grad school. There was a lot of guys my age who were in grad school. I mean, I felt Kurt Cobain had just died, and I saw him as a kind of Hamlet figure. I had a picture of Kurt Cobain on the cover of just because I wanted to kind of channel that youthful aspect of confusion about your sexuality and confusion about who you are and identity. And so I didn't have the stamina aspect of it, but I had this other window.
It's interesting because the kind of cinematic version of it is something that our director Anil Karia really wanted to lean into. So we'd been working on an adaptation for 10 years at that time, myself and Mike Leslie, and I did a music video because I'm a rapper as well. I did a music video with Anil Karia, and he's kind of just directed some of the most iconic rap videos coming out of the UK over the last several years. And we did a video together, and I was like, this is the guy who's going to unlock our Hamlet. Because we took it to a point where it was kind of almost working, but it wasn't quite there. And we gave it to him, and he just saw what it was. And one of the first things he did was, I don't want this Hamlet to be performed for the audience. I want the audience to experience what he's experiencing, which is something you can do in film. So the first thing he did was every scene that Hamlet is not in, we're going to get rid of. We're going to shoot this over the shoulder. This is going to be like a first-person shooter kind of Hamlet. So it's extremely intimate. And to your point, right? Like I see you guys, you're losing your voice, and I saw what you did there as well, and like how you perform that. And it's like we were able to be very intimate with it. That's at least what I thought. I thought going into it, man, I'm just going to whisper this shit. Like the camera's going to be right here. It's going to be great. Like never seen it. The language doesn't want to be performed like that. It can't be performed. One of the most biggest differentiating factors between Shakespearean verse and how we talk normally in normal plays, each thought is just so long. A thought runs over 4 or 5 lines. So you got to, and then it's like going to the gym, and before you know it, it comes out at a velocity. It comes out with a power. To see Anil just slowly moving back with the camera. He's just like, all right, yeah. He needs to kind of like give it some space. And But that cinematic kind of interpretation of it does open up other opportunities and other kind of unexpected things in that way, you know?
Well said.
So did Hamlet affect you in the off hours? You know, were there
There were no off hours.
There were, of course not. But did you find that Hamlet was sort of staying with you? Did you have dreams about Hamlet? Did it affect you in any other way as you were, you know, during the
We wouldn't be up here. you know, I did mine 20 years ago.
Yeah.
10. I mean, you know, it becomes a part of the way that what Andrew said. It's so hard. The ideas are extremely complicated, and they become, once you invite it into you, they become personal. And you do think you're making archaeology discoveries. I feel like nobody's seen this part of Hamlet. I'm sure they have, but it becomes immediate to you, and as it is an incantation. You are inviting these ancient spirits and these ancient ideas, and there's a reason why humanity keeps vibrating off it. It keeps being relevant. It's not just with us, it's with everybody. It is the buzzer about the famous, it's a problem that it's so well known because you want the audience to experience it viscerally. I mean, that's our job, is to make it new, right? That's
the magic of it too.
Yeah.
You know?
They say, somebody said a really brilliant thing where Hamlet, the role, is like a jug, and you pour in the actor's personality, and that jug will take any number of different types of performance. And I love now that Hamlet's being interpreted by lots of people of different genders and ages and all that kind of stuff, because I really do think it holds it because it's so brilliant. Otherwise, you know, even in bad Hamlets that I've seen, you can see, you go, oh my God, that's an extraordinary, unique.
Why did he look at me when he said that? He looked at me.
I wasn't.
The idea of it being a hall of mirrors is really interesting. As you were talking about people of different genders and this kind of stuff, when talking about it being cross-cultural. The first production of Hamlet that I actually saw in the theater was a Japanese production, and it was Ninagawa, the theater director, right? And highly stylized, extremely visual, kind of full of spectacle, like really, really interesting. The first time I performed Shakespeare, I did a tour in Japan of Julius Caesar. And so I don't know why, I just had this idea that's like Shakespeare is crossing cultures. Like we always told, because of the intellectual kidnapping of it, that it's an English literature exercise. It's not. Like Hamlet coming from the Nordic myth, Hamlet, and then the Bhagavad Gita, and all this kind of stuff, the Oedipal myth, it goes cross cultures in that way. But one thing that we found that was interesting was like, we said, okay, I'm going to play Hamlet, so we got to have an Indian family. Okay, we've got an Indian family, we've got to have an Indian burial. Okay, that means they're going to recite the Bhagavad Gita. And we just start opening this stuff up. And what was interesting was a lot of the story points in the original play, which in a Western context seem quite archaic, like you can't marry Ophelia, she's from the wrong family. Right? Your dad's ghost is appearing before you and giving you instructions to repay a blood debt. You have to marry your sister-in-law now. Those are things that are part of the lived experience in my community. I've actually grown up with someone who had to marry their sister-in-law after their brother died in a car crash. It's a tradition called chadar dhakna, to cover with a blanket. It's how you protect the orphans. So a lot of these things in the play kind of started coming to life in this very specific cultural context, in a way that was surprising us. It was like, oh shit, that happens. You know, that's a real thing. So it just speaks to the versatility of this play, that it can reflect so many experiences.
Yeah. You mentioned seeing your first Hamlet. What were the first Hamlets for the rest of you that you saw? Do you remember?
I think it was Mel Gibson's Hamlet. I think it was that one. I had the Ennio Morricone soundtrack. I would listen to it all the time. I mean, it's Franco Zeffirelli. I mean, you know, it was pretty great. But that was the first one I saw.
The first one I saw was Olivier's in my high school classroom. And then the first one I saw on stage was Ralph Fiennes, who was fresh from, he had just kind of become a star with Schindler's List, and he showed up in New York, and he showed up like James Dean. I mean, he was so cool. I mean, it really was great. And and he did a total James Dean. He was Rebel Without a Cause. That was his hit on it, and it was really cool. What was your first?
I think it was Ken Branagh. Yeah, he was brilliant. He was an amazing facility with the language, really, really funny, and all I think what he really recognized as well is that the other parts are really good. There's really brilliant parts for the other people too. People talk about the Hamlet, but the other parts are insanely good parts too.
I mean, I'm already starting to think about Claudius. You know, I mean, it's like we were talking about Hamlet here, but I've got my eye on Claudius these days because I actually think it's so well written.
Yeah.
Gertrude is an amazing character,
Yeah.
and I do think one of the things that really helps Hamlet is when the support. It's a great ensemble. Ophelia is a great role, and when the production is in service of one person's personality, it's designed to be a production.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the thing that I really remember about Hamlet, the really special thing that you have with Hamlet, is the relationship with the audience, is the direct address. It's really incredibly special that you get to say these things, and that's the unique thing about that character, is that you're talking to the audience. And one of the big things that I learned in Hamlet was to be able to not be frightened, to look at people and be right there looking at them, not looking to some black abyss. I remember there's a bit where he has to say, "Am I a coward?" to the audience. And I was so thrilled one night because this woman in the audience went, "No." And I thought, "Oh yes, she thinks I'm talking to her. Yes, no."
Yeah,
really special thing.
It was a very similar approach for us. Actually, what I was looking at a lot was stand-up comedy. I was thinking about that because the idea of somebody being in a room talking to people, and people can sit there for two hours, listening to one person just talk, because we're not pretending that we're in a castle. We're not pretending we're, in Elsinore. We're all in this room. Yeah. We made the stage look exactly like the rest of the theater. Oftentimes we had the lights on. And we were saying, we're all here in this room, and we're going to talk about grief and how hard it is, and how when it happens to everybody, but when it happens to you, it feels like no one's ever gone through it before. It's like, sure, your dad died, but it wasn't my dad. And this is what happens when my dad dies, or when my mom dies, my parent dies, and so to be able to have that. And to not be afraid of that was electric and fantastic. In fact, at one point, what we did was we had a gag, where when I'm pulling Polonius's body over and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are after me, we grab one audience member. I'm like, pull them off of the chair and put Polonius's body on the chair and put the program on his face, and I'm run out. And I remember the one night that felt really good was because there was this one person that fucking hated being there. They just didn't like it. This lady was just like, and she was she was in the front row and had her legs out like this, and was just like reading the program, and like audibly gasping, like, ugh, doing that. And I was like, ooh, I know who I'm going for. I know who I'm going for tonight. And that was after that intermission, she was gone. Didn't come back. The other one funny little anecdote about it too was the night Al Pacino came. Oh. Right? Who that's who I just copied him for the longest. That's how I act. That's how I learned how to act, right? And so he was there, and I see him up there, and I just couldn't help it. And I was like, my father. Methinks I see my father. And then I went back, and I was like, oh, wow, that was intense. I don't know if that was stupid. I probably shouldn't have done that. And I come back out, and he's not in the row anymore. He's like 4 rows back with sunglasses on like this. That was harsh.